Hey, yeah, it's me again. This on another YouTube video, and you know what? I'm happy. I'm not gonna put any special things on this video. I'm just gonna leave it black, but I'll probably make a special thumbnail. But Dan Didio has been fired from DC fucking Comics. Ding dong, the dick is gone. And most of the reason that he's probably told to get the fuck out of that building was through 10 years of god awful bad bad decisions. And listening to some of the defenders or some of the misinformation people, like unfortunately Midnight's Edge, who got every information wrong. I know they have the, now I understand the worry that maybe DC Comics will probably go away or become an all digital comic book company, which will be bad, and I understand that. But most of these decisions that DC was making to have their comic books printed and shipped to other places and to other stores that actually help DC sales was not just Dan Didio's decision, but it was also Bob Harris's decision, which also leads to some of the misinformation that Midnight's Edge was putting up. Like I said, I understand their worriness and other people's worriness that DC will probably go away or become an all digital comic book, and that's understandable. But there are certain facts and shit that certain people need to get fucking correct here. Dan Didio was horrible for the company. And with rumors coming out and pretty much almost being, well, true due to the simple fact that he was fired or confirmed. I mean, first of all, some of these rumors date back even before he ran DC comic books, like when he was running Mainframe Entertainment, and when Mainframe Entertainment had the license for Transformers, he told Mark Wolfman that Transformers had too much continuity and he had to get rid of that continuity, which gave us that shit show known as Transformers Beast Machines. Don't confuse Beast Machines with Beast Wars. Beast Wars was the good show by Mainframe, and Beast Machine was a fucking turd fest that left people scratching their head and wondering, basically throughout the show, saying, to predict your Krusty the Clown clip, what the fuck was that? Or, in other words, when the fuck did that happen? And yeah, that happened a lot in Beast Machines. Basically, when half your audience got question marks all over their fucking head, all saying, "When the fuck did that happen? When? How?" Or acting like Rick Moranis after they you watched Spaceballs the movie on Spaceballs the movie, and he was just sitting there holding that cup of coffee, goes, "When? Who? How?" It was kind of like that. And also because Dan Didio also took credit for two lines of comic books that were successful that he had nothing to do with. His predecessor did before. I, I think it was a woman, and she was promptly fired in place of Dan Didio. And he wasn't editor in chief. He was chief creative office. He never became editor in chief because the chief editor in chief title did not exist until he was promoted, which kind of makes him editor in chief when he was so-called chief creative officer, whatever the fuck that means. But if rumors had or persistent, he hated the entire Sinestro Corporal storyline, and he was in favor of Amazon's attack, which was a terrible story, and I think it was got by some guy named something Pfeiffer. And no, he's not related to Michelle Pfeiffer in any way. But and he said that Sinestro Corporal will be forgotten, and the creator of this whole Sinestro Corporal shit will be left to the wayside, and no one will even remember his name. Well, the creator of Sinestro Corporal was Jeff fucking Jones. And this was before the whole Marvel television universe came out, Arrow and all that shit. Let's see where Jeff Jones is now. Oh yeah, he's in charge of the fucking Arrowverse or the DC cinematic television universe. The whole fucking thing. I'm going to say that Sinestro Corporal was a massive success, and nobody even fucking remembers Amazon Attacks anymore, or even the writer of Amazon's Attack, which was the exact opposite of what Dan Didio. Because, he was trying to turn Wonder Woman's mother into a supervillain, and it failed miserably. He hated legacy characters, and I've known for a long time he kept trying to kill Nightwing and all sorts of other characters, and he killed off a bunch of really good characters too under his wing. Basically, putting a hit list of characters he wanted dead, and some of those characters were like Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, so forth and so forth, which kind of is funny because when after Didio had three failure comic books under his when he was creative officer, he was promoted. And Sony and Bob Harris became the new editor in chief, and Jeff Jones became chief creative officer. I'm not going to get much into Bob Harris, but he was a guy that was fucked over by Marvel years ago, by the current heads of Marvel, as well as one Joe fucking Quesada. And this was a guy that kept Marvel alive through the X-Men comic books, and then yeah, he made a couple mistakes, especially way how he ended the Clone Wars. But he and but when he fully took over Marvel Comics as editor in chief, he basically was the only thing keeping them from bankrupts until new management took control and decided to blame him on shit he didn't do and say shit he didn't do. And the leading guy who still says shit about Bob Harris is Joe Quesada. And it's just this one gigantic fucking mess after another. And you keep wondering, and the possible reason is that DC Comics is owned by Time Warner, which is also Warner Brothers. And that time was I think Kevin Tsukiyajwa, an Japanese American born guy who got in charge of Warner Brothers. And this guy was a fucking idiot. He sat there and thought wartime a movie about a wartime dog suffering from PTSD named Max would be a better movie and would defeat the Avengers. Yeah, he thought a dog with PTSD would be better than the Avengers film. That's not a fucking lie. He literally thought that. There was an open letter about him and some of the god awful decisions he kept bringing out for Warner Brothers. And both him and Dan Didio, who was recently promoted in DC, would brainstorm on how to create the new DC cinematic universe. And Didio was brought in because he used to work for a production company. Several production companies that he ran to the fucking ground, but who cares? He ran a production company. Fucking brilliant. And of course, they wanted to give Christopher Nolan complete control over this cinematic universe. Christopher Nolan said no because, well, he wants to make his own set of movies, Insurrection and Interstellar, all good films. So they give it to the first guy who makes a successful DC film, being Zack Snyder, which led to the god awful, and I mean terrible Justice League film. Diddy wasn't mainly responsible, but he was one of the people who voted and wanted Zack Snyder to take complete control, and he did. And of course, Zack Snyder fucked it up. On the DC cinematic universe is still a fucking train wreck. And also, let's not forget Paul Dini, the man who created Harley Quinn. I bet you're all wondering why Harley Quinn in the movie doesn't look like Harley Quinn at all, or acts like the Harley Quinn, that's because the original creator of Harley Quinn ain't has nothing to do with fucking Warner Brothers whatsoever, because he was fucking banned from Warner Brothers by Dan Didio after he and Paul Dini had a public fight over the Batman franchise in the comic books. And yeah, it's a rumor, take it with a grain of salt, but the reality was Dan Didio got Paul Dini fired. And this is about when Kevin Tecchiaro was still in charge of Warner, and the merger hasn't happened yet. So Didio had all the power in the world, and Paul Dini had none. And Didio just said, I could snap my fingers. Or according to the rumors, he would go around to people saying, "I could snap my fingers and call a number and have your ass fired if you so much as disagree with me." And of course, Paul Dini, he did. You know, what made this worse was that Paul Dini was also writing for the Batman Arkham video game, Arkham City. Yes, he finished Batman Arkham as well as Arkham City, but he hadn't finished the DLC scripts, writing the DLC scripts for Batman Arkham City, which led to that god awful Hush DLC that everybody hated in that video game. And then, Batman Arkham Knight comes out, and it has a terrible fucking story because Paul Dini from the last two games was fired on the say so of Dan fucking Didio. Of course, also didn't help that Rocksteady, the guys who made the game, also put in this fucking clunky ass Batmobile with horrid controls. Everything else about the game was fine. I mean, the Batman, the way he moved was just like in. And you also had Arkham Origin, which also was another Batman Arkham game that sucked. Thankfully, not done by Rocksteady. But also, well, let's face it, Rocksteady fucked up Dark Knight. I mean, Arkham Knight, and Arkham Knight was bad. It's an unplayable fucking mess. That Batmobile was a disaster. Rocksteady later tried to make it up by allowing you to have all these other Batmobiles, but the problem was you had to defeat the game and defeat all the TLCs, and a lot of people just couldn't do it. And a lot of the DLC was sneaking around in your fucking tank, because putting a sneak feature in your fucking tank was a good idea. Because that's what people would do with tanks. They go sneaking in one place to another. It's a fucking tank. Its job is to mow shit down and blow the fuck out of things. But that's why the Harley Quinn movie came into the disaster, because could they talk to the original creator of Harley Quinn? No. And also because Suicide Squad was a piece of shit. And I hope the James Gunn reboot of Suicide Squad is something that's better than what we got, because what we got was shit. All I can imagine was when the AT&T guys came in after the merger, they were looking at all this shit from DC, seeing that they were just losing money hand over fist in the whole DC shit. Realized, and Kevin Tsukasa was already, well, he was removed due to a sex scandal, and they were said they were trying to keeping him in, but that didn't happen. He was exposed for a bunch of sex scandals. But they came in, they were looking at the DC revenues, and they were just saying, "Well, this is shit." And then Charlie came in and looked at some of the revenues that Didio was bringing in, and all the bad ideas, the customer complaints, which were a ton of them, and then Didio was literally ignoring all of them, because that's what he does. He ignores when people complain, and or he'll sit there and agree with them, but then come up with something completely different behind their backs. He never listened to any of what his customer base asked or what anybody asked. or even to his other writers and artists who probably had way more better idea. Hell, when he was writing for comic books, he sucked as a writer so badly they had to remove him and then make him, the head of DC Comics for some fucked up reason. But Dan Didio said, "Oh shit, I'm losing all this power. Everybody who's protecting me are all gone. Kevin's not here to help me anymore." And what very little help. While, AT&T's basically screaming at the top of their lungs, "Get this fucking moron out of here. He's costing us money." And I hope to God that Warner Brothers goes back to fucking Paul Dini and rehires him back. I don't know who's going to become the new head of DC comic books, but anybody is better than Dan Didio at this point. Yeah, DC Comics will probably be destroyed, or if it wasn't already destroyed by Dan Didio, and trying to bring back the 52 reboot that nobody liked. He hated Rebirth, which was designed to fix 52, and Rebirth was done by Bob Harris, and Metal was also, authorized by Bob Harris, which was also another success. Because Bob Harris is fixing one. I mean, here comes Dan Didio with a fucking baseball bat, bashing everything away, and here comes Bob Harris trying to put everything back and telling him to stop. And I think he tried to have Bob Harris fired, and AT&T said no. He's like, "But you fired. I got Paul Dini fired. You should do what I tell you. Yeah, I'm the guy you love, not him. Every decision I make, you should go with." I hope they dragged his ass out of fucking the building. But yeah, Dinio is no longer in that. And yes, I'm happy and I'm gloating. I'm extremely fucking happy. And I get to expel a bunch of shit I've been wanting to say about that piece of shit dumbass. And I am scared for DC's future. But no matter what Warner Bros. Picks, even if it's happened right now, good or bad, I'm still gonna point the finger at Dan Didio and say it was all his fucking fault. That's it for now. See you guys later.